Hello there. I hope you're doing well. Can you believe we've entered a new year? It's really hard to believe. I think as I'm getting older, I see how fast time really goes by. But all the more reason for thinking ahead, thinking about what we want to do. You know, people call them resolutions. What are we resolving to do in the new year? In fact, someone recently asked me after Mass if I had made some resolutions. And I just said, whatever God wants is what I would like to do. And I don't know if he expected that answer. And maybe that's easier said than done. I think so, because we often want to do what we want to do, not necessarily always what God wants of us. But we have to remember he's the divine physician and he knows exactly what we need and when we need it. You know, as we enter this new year, it's a good idea to think about making those resolutions, making some changes, tweaks maybe to our prayer lives, to our spiritual lives. It might mean adding a little prayer in the morning or another little prayer in the evening, or a time for an examination of conscience during the day or in the evening. Definitely frequenting the sacraments, the Eucharist, of course, confession more often, times of adoration. So these things, of course, we can think about, we can pray about, we could even jot them down. We could even put them in a journal or just put them on a to-do list, what we want to do, and commit to making them happen, but also to be prayerfully flexible, if I could say it that way, for the ways that God might rearrange our days, putting a sick person in our lives, someone in the family we need to care for, or someone in need of help, or something that happens on the way to Mass and we don't get there, but to accept it, to ask God to help us through it, whatever it is, but then make the point of getting back to that active prayer, whatever it might have been, before God called you to another form of active prayer, taking care of someone prayerfully or whatever it may be. There's so many things I could say about that, but rather than go on about a list of things that we will make to resolve to do in the new year, and making sure we carry them out, I want to offer a way to think about prayer in this coming year. Another way to think about prayer in this coming year. Now, let me see how I can explain it. Have you ever heard of a vessel of grace? To me, that sounds lovely. A vessel of grace. Wow, I would like a lot of vessels of grace, is how I feel. I would love all that grace. But let me explain how Saint Faustina learned from Jesus about a vessel of grace and how he taught her how sometimes she doesn't really like that vessel of grace. Well, one time when she was making a holy hour and she was struggling through it, she had this experience with Jesus. And I'll read from her diary, and it's paragraph number 1599. And she said, "As I was trying to make my holy hour, I saw the suffering Jesus, who spoke these words to me. 'My daughter, do not pay so much attention to the vessel of grace as to the grace itself, which I give you, because you are not always pleased with the vessel, and then the graces too become deficient. I want to guard you from that, and I want you never to pay attention to the vessel in which I send you my grace. Let all the attention of your soul be concentrated on responding to my grace as faithfully as possible.'" So that's what Jesus told St. Faustina, and he pointed out to her that she's not always happy with these vessels of grace. Now, what he means by that, if I may say myself, is sometimes the vessel is something she doesn't care for at that moment. It could be someone picking on her. It could be an illness, a suffering, a darkness. She suffered 2 darknesses in the spiritual life, 2 dark times. So, in our own lives, we could think about these little pinpricks or these little splinters from the cross, things we, have to experience. Someone not being very nice to us. But what can we do? Be charitable to them in response, offer it to God, pray for them, pray for our own souls, and God distributes the graces. You see, He's giving us opportunities for grace by offering vessels of grace. So we could think about this as we're entering this new year. Yes, write down your list or mentally or from your heart, form these resolutions, these intentions for your spiritual life in the new year. And, works of mercy, all kinds of things that you can add to your spiritual repertoire. But also, and I think very importantly, to consider trusting our divine physician. The words of the signature line in the image behind me here, Jesus in the divine mercy image, are Jesus, I trust in you. So do we trust Him? Do we trust His holy will in our lives? For this new year we're entering right now, can we trust Him more? Certainly we can. We can pray for the graces to trust Him no matter what, to continue to pray to Him, asking for these graces, because we certainly need them in our day and time. We certainly need them. And by responding to His grace, asking for them, cooperating with His grace, we can really become a great beacon of light in our world today. So it's something we can do, especially while we're entering this great Jubilee year of hope in 2025, this beautiful year of hope. And I'll have a lot to say about that in future visits, since I wrote a book for this year. So we'll talk more about that later on. But for now, let's think about these things, form our prayerful intentions, and consider resigning our will to the holy will of God, turning it over to Him, surrendering our will to His will. It's not easy. It's not always easy. And there are so many opportunities, even in the course of a day, I think, when God gives us opportunities to turn to Him, to ask for the graces, and to really submit ourselves to His holy will, because He knows what we need and when we need it. And He knows exactly what is good for our souls and what will help us get to heaven and what will help us help others get to heaven, right? So I hope you enjoyed this visit, and hope that you will consider some of these things, particularly to think about submitting your will to the will of God and to accept His vessels of grace during this year. I'm going to do that myself. I'm going to strive to be more open and to be more attentive and to be more accepting of what God wants of me and what He presents to me. So I think I've rambled on enough for this visit, but I hope you stay well, take your vitamins, keep praying, stay close to Jesus, Mary, and good Saint Joseph. God bless you. God love you. And I hope to see you soon. Bye for now.